the preferred fleet partner. So it's not just me coming up and saying it, it's stuff that you guys are part of that we have won those awards. You want to go on, Jay? So what we want to do is we're here to help you use, again, the money you're spending better. So what I like to think of is if I'm looking into a bucket, this is the bottom of the bucket. Each dot is an area of inefficiency, or where can we come in and stop that flow of money going out, make things easier, take things off your plate so you can focus on growing your city, making those improvements, leaving the fleet planning and strategy to the experts. That's all we do every day is manage 2 million vehicles, and we'll do a fantastic job of yours. So everything starts with acquisition, which figures out what's actually going to get built. How can we source those vehicles for you, make things turnkey through funding? You can pay cash, open-ended lease, finance. We'll dive into that. License, tag, and title, all aftermarket customization, maintenance, fuel, GPS, driver safety. Ultimately, the whole gamut. And our job is to, as I've been meeting with Jay and the team, is figure out where can we fit in? How do we make things better? How do we improve? Go ahead, Jay. So when we did an analysis of the fleet, so we looked at, you have a little over 20 vehicles, but about 18 fell into the right life cycle that aren't large or medium duty. So if you look at the second slot, the second little greenish box, it says 9.5 average age. What that tells us is every vehicle that's brand new, there's one that's 16 to 20 years old. And we all know that older vehicles cost more to maintain, they break down more often, might not be the most prettiest thing on the road these days. So what we want to do is write that life cycle. On average, you drive about 9,700 miles a year. So again, retail people, us, AAA says about 15,000 miles a year. That plays an important role, that average miles on the resale piece, which we'll jump into. Typically, you're buying about 2 vehicles a year. An average age is 2014, so 7 years. Oh, let me do that math. 9 years old at this point. So we got a little ways to do, and we're going to show you a plan on how to get there to really drive down the cost. Go ahead, Jay. Or any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So again, this is just a visual of what we look at. So at Enterprise, we're not a dealership. We're a fleet management company. We're a partner. We're a long-term consultant. So we meet with our clients 2 to 3 times out of the year. And what we're looking at is each type of vehicle, each bucket of vehicles. You got your cruisers, you've got your pickup trucks, you got your sedans, you got SRO vehicles. They all have a different utilization pattern. They all have a different life cycle. And what we want to do is take you from that 18 to 20-year life cycle to what is the lowest cost of ownership or cost per mile to run this vehicle or group of vehicles. So your police cruisers are going to be on a different life cycle than your, sedans, than your public works vehicle. We track, we monitor, we make those recommendations for you to, again, use the money as cheaply as possible or as efficiently as possible. If you've ever rented a car, you know that vehicle is typically within 2 years old or under 40,000 miles. It's the same concept, because if you run a vehicle for 40,000 miles and you turn it in, you've really done no maintenance, a couple oil changes here and there, maybe a few tire rotations, but you're getting rid of that vehicle before maintenance starts happening, before you have to do brakes and tires. So if you guys are driving on average 9,000 miles a year, and we say, hey, 5 years, 50,000, these days manufacturers' tires last that long. You're getting rid of that vehicle before you put good money into it, and that makes the life cycle longer. So the other thing that you guys would probably agree to is that newer vehicles sell for more than older vehicles. So that's the other big piece here. That's that depreciation line. Right now you're selling it where there's not a lot of life left into it or value in it. We want to move that up to where these vehicles are a hot commodity. And we'll dive into what that looks like here. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Moving on. So we're going to talk about government buying power. And the reason I'm using 2021 versus today's numbers is I just want to show you resale, because eventually the market's going to right itself. So back in 2021, if we were to go individually to buy a vehicle, we're going to have to negotiate off MSRP, hopefully get down to invoice price. Maybe the rep will give us Z plan or X plan or whatever Ford calls it, and you'll get the vehicle below invoice. As a government agency, you're buying these vehicles at invoice minus the incentive. So in this case, you're buying this vehicle for $30,000 versus us trying to get it down to $38,000. So you're already in a positive equity position day one because you're buying that vehicle so much cheaper than we can as a retail public. So if we look at the bottom line there, so if you run this vehicle for 10 years to 100,000 miles, it's going to sell for about $6,000. Done a lot of maintenance in 100,000 miles. You can see resale value, not great, $6,000. Your total capital outlay is $24,000. So we look at, what if we just shorten that life cycle in half? Let's run it 5 years, 60,000 miles. You can see that's going to sell for roughly $20,000. You've done 40,000 less miles of maintenance. You're capitalizing on phenomenal resale value at this point. Your capital outlay is really a third of what it was running at 5 extra years. But because we're not a dealership, because we're a long-term partner and we meet with our clients, we're always looking at, well, what if we run it 2 years or 1 year? Because of the types of vehicles you have and the lower miles that you do, in some certain instances, you can sell these vehicles for the same or a little or more than what you paid for it. So this is real numbers from our company selling these back in 2020, 2021. Now, I'm not saying this works for every vehicle, but this is how we run our fleet. This is how we would run your fleet. So, little known secret, at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, we make more money buying and selling vehicles than we do renting them now because it's a volume. The more vehicles you get, the higher incentives you get. So we almost get government incentives when we buy our vehicles. So we turn them when there's a lot of life left in it and you keep that operational expense low. So really it drives down the overall cost of ownership or cost of money. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? No? Okay.
Just one question.
Yes.
Could you repeat how many miles are they driving on these cars a year? What did you say?
Yours is an average of 9,700 miles.
That's what you said. Okay.
Yeah, 9,700.
Okay, thanks.
Now, again, that's, you have your cruisers, which are doing higher, and then your other vehicles are doing much lower. So that's just a blended average. Great question. So ultimately, we're going to sell vehicles. In 2019, again, I'm using pre-COVID numbers because I want to just, eventually we're going to get back to that at some point. We sold over 1 million vehicles and we outperform as a company, we outperform the auction by 9.8%. So right now you guys are selling vehicles on GovDeals. Continue to sell your 20-year-old vehicles on GovDeals. But when you get to slightly newer vehicles, about 10 years and newer, we crush GovDeals every day. That's all we're fantastic at. So when you buy 1 million vehicles, you got to sell 1 million vehicles. So we have over 700 people who all they do is sell vehicles day in and day out. Locally, we outperform the auction by 12%. So that's just more money back to you. So our job, it's kind of like the stock market. Buy that vehicle as cheap as we can, sell it for as much as we can, and you guys could all gain on resale. So it's really a phenomenal way to manage the cash flow or the capital outlay with your fleet. Does that make sense? Okay. Go ahead. So again, I mentioned a few times that we're not a dealership. We're here to help you figure out and design a long-term plan that's fluid and flexible. How you want to pay for vehicles is up to you. You can pay cash for a vehicle, you can finance a vehicle, or you can do what's called an open-ended lease. It's your decision. You can pick and choose. It's your money. Majority, about 99% of our clients do the open-ended lease. The open-ended lease is just a different way of financing. It is not a dealership style lease. Want to go to the next slide, Jay? Go to the next slide. It's not a dealership style lease. There's no miles restrictions. There's no wear and tear penalties. We know these vehicles are going to come back with stains on the seats, holes in the seats, dents and dings. They're a tool for business. We understand that. That's how we sell our vehicles. We wholesale them. They do not have to be retail ready like dealerships, anything like that. So we know the condition that your vehicles are going to come back in. The entire term, whatever the lease term or initial term is completely flexible. So you can get in and out of the vehicle at any time. You have all ownership rights to the vehicles. Again, that resale. So when we sell that vehicle at the back end, you get all of that capital expense on the back end coming back to you as like a trade-in on the next vehicle. You customize these however you want. We're the logistics coordinator. So when I talk to Chief Halfhill for the vehicles he wants, and he wants to use L&W for the upfit, I talk to Dave at L&W. We connect them with Chief. They build out the vehicle, the options they want. He sends it to me, and we just make that happen when the vehicle comes in. Same goes for the public works vehicles. If you want to dump or snow plow, we just coordinate the logistics of it. So when that vehicle shows up for you, it's ready to go. All you have to do is move your equipment over. Everything's taken care of by Enterprise. So we now become the logistics handler, which is phenomenal because you don't want to just sit there and wonder where's my vehicle all the time. We're controlling that. We have full visibility to tell you where your vehicles are in the production status. No wear and tear, unlimited mileage, utilize it how it's yours. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's do some math on how it works. So let's say a vehicle costs $30,000. We know in 5 years, this vehicle is going to sell for $20,000. So you have three ways to do it. You could pay 30 grand for that vehicle just to get all 20 grand back in 5 years, right? You could finance it down to zero, sell it at year 5 and get $20,000, but you're tying up today's dollars you could use just to get a big back that you could use somewhere else. With inflation and everything, it's not as worth as much. Most people do the open-ended lease. So what this does is you'll, instead of paying down to 20 or down to zero, you'll pay this vehicle down to $15,000 over 5 years. You'll pay $3,000 a year. Over 5 years, you'll pay down to 15. When we sell that vehicle for 20, you get the difference between the 20 and the $15,000. So $5,000 of resale or equity to roll into the next vehicle. So you're building equity to help offset future price increases on vehicles. We over depreciate the vehicle, so that way, in case something happens, that the value drops a little bit by maybe excess damage. And excess damage is like you're missing a door or a tire or the bumper's caved in. Usually police departments back into things, that sort of thing. They're shaking their heads like, yeah. So we build a little leeway on the resale. The other thing that we are able to do is we sell around damage. So we have customers who all they do is Megan Hamilton's, my team, oversees the resale. They send her photos. Could we fix it or not? And she'll say yes or no. It makes sense or no, we can sell around that. Again, because of how well we sell vehicles, these vehicles don't have to be in pristine condition and we can sell around them. So that's how the open-ended lease. It's really a cash flow tool. So instead of dumping $30,000 in the vehicle just to get it back $20,000 of it back 5 years, you're only paying $15,000, half of the life of the vehicle, to get $5,000 back. So essentially, $10,000, a third of the price of the vehicle over a 5-year period, all said and done. So it's a cash flow tool. It just allows you to replace more vehicles with less capital outlay. Does that make sense?
But your fleet management would be selling the vehicle, not
Correct.
us.
Yes, we sell the vehicle for you, so you do not have to get involved in it.
And in this case, you're talking about 15,000 versus 20,000. You guys sell it for 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
How is that applied towards our lease, or does that not factor in at all?
Yeah, so that would, like, say that $5,000 of resale, we would use that as a down payment on the next vehicle. So the next vehicle is now, instead of being $33,000, is now $28,000 because you have resale value to drop that price. Does that make sense?
So 100% of that, we'll call it a profit, I can't think of the right word. 100% of that is applied towards our next lease.
All but 400. 400 is there's a
Transaction fee.
a $400 transaction fee comes out of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm just using 5,000 for simple enough. But
Right.
yeah, $400 comes out of that transaction, which you don't get billed. It just comes out of that resale price.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
you guys get all gain on resale. Great question. Okay. Go ahead, sir. Yep. And then on top of that, after we design a plan, we meet with you again, like I said, 2 to 3 times out of the year. So right now we're in that top box, strategic planning. Model year 24 is opening up. We're talking to the manufacturers. We're seeing what are they actually going to build? Are they going to allow you any vehicles? What's the cheapest model that's going to be available for this calendar year or this model year? We give all the data to you, and you can say yay or, like Chief does, shoot those ideas down, but it's your decision. We just execute whatever plan you want. So, take a bite. But yeah, our job is to bring you ideas on what other people are doing, to go, could this work for you? Could this be a benefit in lieu of maybe some vehicles not getting built? Then we have ongoing, here's what's going on in the auto industry, ongoing webinars, trainings, how to use everything. And then ultimately we do an annual client review, year over year spend that we're tracking, everything we're spending, where costs went up, costs went down, areas of opportunity, again, benchmarking your fleet, your makeup against everyone else in the country that we're managing. How can we do it better? So ultimately we're always trying to drive down the cost associated with your fleet.
So Jeremy, did you speak to maintenance yet, or did you?
Yeah, so we have the ability, right now you guys outsource maintenance. Do we have the ability to outsource, to use our maintenance program? So that what that does is still use the local shops for maintenance, but all that data flows into our website. So now we have full visibility of tracking. You have an up-to-date system to really dive everything. So you guys can participate in that if you want.
And in a new vehicle on an open-ended lease, what's the typical warranty on a vehicle?
It's manufacturer warranty.
Manufacturer
Yeah.
warranty.
So again, like if you think about it, like Ford is 3 years, 36,000 miles, some of your vehicles will fall out of that. But if you have a GM or a Ford, that's 5 years, 60,000 miles, or you go Hyundai, it's 5 years, 60,000. It's under warranty pretty much the whole term. So those are things as well that we look at, is that your maintenance costs are really going to decrease because now you're just living in the preventive maintenance world. So that's a good question.
And I'm assuming, Jay, that are we still using our own insurance carrier or for our vehicles? Our own insurance carrier?
Are we still using it for what?
Yes, you guys will use your own insurance carrier to cover the vehicles.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you guys, we have insurance programs, but government agencies, you guys get phenomenal rates compared to everybody else.
But to clarify on his question with the maintenance
Yeah.
costs, we would still, unless it's covered under warranty, oil changes, et cetera, we still pay for that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not included in the lease at all.
So part of the program on new vehicles is we can fix the cost of maintenance. So we have a full fixed maintenance program. So we know that in 5 years, 50,000 miles, you're going to do X amount of oil changes, tire rotations, all that stuff. We can fix that cost of maintenance. So it covers everything. So now your maintenance can essentially become fixed for budget season. So you know exactly, the goal of our program is to get you to know every year I'm going to spend X on vehicles, Y on maintenance, and fuels to be pretty darn close. So we want you to get to an extremely, almost down to the penny, budgetable number every year. So yeah, so on new vehicles, we can't fix the cost.
And on the warranty question, heavy duty use or police force use is still covered under a manufacturer's warranty?
Yeah, because it's still a manufactured vehicle.
No rider required or anything like that?
To my knowledge, no. I've never had an issue with police cruisers being turned down for maintenance because they're a police cruiser.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Jay. All right, so now to the meat and potatoes of this. So this is on one of the last couple slides here. So we profiled out your fleet. So the first fleet profile is just a breakdown of your vehicles. And then in the top right corner, you'll see replacement criteria, pretty darn small. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to replace everything that's over 10 years old or over 100,000 miles. The worst of the worst vehicles, the oldest ones, the eyesores, that sort of thing. And then over the next 4 years, end up replacing your entire fleet. So over 5 years, we're going to turn over your entire fleet, all of these 18 vehicles. You can see that breaks down to 6, 4, 3, 4, and 1 over the next 5 years. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So now what we do is we compare what you're currently doing. So the orange line is pretty much what you guys are currently doing. Find about, on average, 2 vehicles a year for about $112,000. Your maintenance, about $54,000 a year, and your fuel's about we'll call it $68,000. Your total fleet budget's around $234,000 a year. So if you look back to the previous slide, we're going to replace those 6 vehicles in year 1. If you go over to the lease column, you'll see that 6 vehicles is costing you roughly, we'll round up, $68,000. So that's where the open-ended lease comes into play. Average vehicle these days is about $40,000. So if you were going to pay cash for 6 vehicles, you're roughly around $275,000, $300,000 up. With using the open-ended lease, this includes includes $20,000 for police cruiser upfit, includes $15,000 for some of the larger trucks, $3,000 for pretty much every other truck for strobes and stuff. So it already factors in the equipment, and it's saying you're replacing equipment every time you get a new vehicle. So in year one, we're going to replace those 6 vehicles. You're going to, the lease cost, including everything, about $68,000. Your equity that you're going to get back from selling those should be a minimum of 20, again, depending on the condition, if they're drivable, but should be about $22,000. You'll see your maintenance costs decrease because you're getting rid of the worst of worst. You're going to pick up some fuel economy. So your fleet budget, essentially in year one, there's roughly, just math, the 232 minus 147, roughly $87,000 in net cash savings. So again, we're not a dealership, we're long-term partners. We want to show you a long-term plan. So as you add more vehicles to the lease column, your capital expense goes up because you're adding more vehicles, you're replacing vehicles more often. But you'll start seeing that you're going to get equity from your existing fleet, newer vehicles sell for more, and then equity from the vehicles that we're providing you. So in year 2, some of these vehicles we would recommend a 2-year cycle. So in year 2, you're starting to see some of that equity, as you'll see, at $30,000. And then as you go on, maintenance, you'll see it goes down and essentially becomes fixed. That's because you're living in that preventive maintenance world. I mean, if you're driving 9,700 miles on average, that's 1 oil change and 1 tire rotation a year, maybe 2 oil changes if you guys want to do that. But manufacturers are running these vehicles about 9,000 for an oil change. Again, cruisers are a little different, but this is an average here. Your fuel economy is essentially going to go down. We say become fixed because since 2010, fuel economy has gone up on roughly about 2% every year. So by 2025, the EPA says that everything that's a half-ton truck and smaller has to be an average of 54.5 miles per gallon, and all your other trucks have to be an average of 30.5 miles per gallon. That's 2 model years away. So why EVs are getting pushed, because 100 miles per gallon really jumps that number up. So that's why we say it becomes fixed, because you're always going to have the best fuel economy. You're always going to have a newer fleet. So over 10 years, we're estimating saving you guys about $285,000 on your fleet. Threw a whole bunch out there, so I'll wait a second for questions.
On your next to last slide there, the fleet profile, if you could go back, Jay.
The back one?
Yeah.
Yes.
The last 2 vehicles you have listed there, the 3/4 ton pickup and the 1 ton pickup, are those public works vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not just talking about the police
No,
department.
we're
at this
talking
point.
the entire city's fleet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And your calculations obviously include those 2 vehicles.
Correct.
As Jeff said with the insurance, the newer the vehicles, the higher the insurance. Does our insurance coverage a flat rate no matter what the vehicle? Or is it, like if you have a more expensive car, you pay more in insurance?
I'm not for sure. I mean, KLC, we got through KLC. Do you know whether,
I would say.
I'm assuming that you will,
Our insurance policy covers all of our buildings, structures, vehicles, all of that in one package.
Okay,
So a higher level vehicle is not going to impact the bottom line.
okay. And these, what you're proposing is actually to lease these vehicles
Yes.
versus purchase and resell them via whatever.
Correct. Yeah, so we'll be title holder. So that allows us to, we have to hold title for at least 12 months. That's part of our covenants is with the manufacturers. So we don't want to put dealerships out of business. They give us a lot of rental business. Anyway, so we hold the title. We are the bank. So leasing, we're the bank. So that way we can be fluid and flexible, which means we can get in and out of the vehicle at any time. So even if we say 5 years is the right starting term, your account manager, client strategy manager might come to you 2 years and go, hey guys, we need to turn this vehicle in next year because the resale value is so strong. Conversely, we might say, hey, it's 3 years in, gas jumps to $7 a gallon, God forbid. Hey guys, gas is $7 a gallon. Let's run this vehicle a little longer because resale on that's starting to drop. So those are the things that we're going to bring to your attention too. Is just because we start with a plan doesn't mean that's the exact plan for the whole life. It's how we run our rental fleet. It can change, COVID changed everything in one whole day, it seems. So that's how we look at your fleet is we want to be nimble and flexible. By us holding title, it allows us to do that for your fleet. Now, if you wanted to pay cash, you can pay all but $1 because we have to hold title for it.
So we could still purchase the vehicles versus leasing through Enterprise
Yeah.
Fleet Management.
Yeah, you could just, so if the vehicle's 30,000, you just cut us a check for 29,999.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But in that case like that, we would be the owner.
We
not
still,
you.
because there's $1 left, Enterprise is still the owner of the vehicle.
Ah,
And then at 12 months, you could take title if you want.
gotcha.
If you wanted to, yeah, you could buy it off the lease too, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the lease, let's say go that $15,000 scenario. Let's say, you know what, it's just not what we thought. We want to buy out this vehicle. That's just a remaining balance. You can just pay us 15, or you could finance it down to 0.
But you won't get all the equity and the
Correct.
savings that you showed in that last slide.
Exactly. You'd lose out on all that resale value. And
So Jeremy, a question, if we decided to go through this program, could you come back in a year and say, okay, here's what we projected, here's what actually happened? Is that
Yes.
something you do to?
yes, that's part of the annual client review.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're looking at that annually to see, okay, where did we hit? And because ultimately, if we're not hitting it, you're going to fire us, right? So we're pretty conservative on our numbers. We want to make sure that we, put our best foot forward because you guys are, taxpayer dollars. We know that you guys answer to your constituents.
We've had a couple of meetings with Jeremy down here, and we've already gone through this a couple times, but one of the questions I had, what's happened is an economic downturn, and we can't continue to do this program. We can just simply stop it
Correct.
at any time
Correct.
and either purchase it or pay off the lease until it's done. And
That's correct.
So,
Yeah, so you're never stuck with us, right? So let's say 2 years in, you've got 7 vehicles from us, and you're like, it's just not working out. So you just stop getting vehicles from us, and then we figure out what do you want to do with those 7? You want to just continue to pay them off, run out the lease, buy them out. You want us to sell them now, give you all the resale gain. So we'll work with that. It's extremely rare that happens. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I have yet to have a government customer leave.
But the leasing is on the individual vehicles. It's not a blanket
No,
lease.
each vehicle's its own contract.
Okay.
That's how it's structured in our system because we want to be flexible, right?
Gotcha.
So that's because if everything was on the same term, is all one, then we can't be flexible for you, right? So we know that cruisers are going to run 4 or 5 years, but on that 3/4 ton truck, that might be a 1-year turn, right? So if we set you up at 3, but 6 months in, we're like, guys, you paid 40 for it. You paid 50 for it. We can run it for a year and sell it for 55. We want to do that. Those are things that we bring to your attention. So that's in our system, how we structure it is each vehicle's its own contract.
Now, with the additional equipment, the light bars, the radios, the stands for the computers, et cetera, you said that you could set that up in the lease cost.
Correct.
In the beginning.
Yes.
If that's the case, then that equipment belongs
to you.
to us?
To you. It's your vehicle. It's your equipment.
At the end of the lease?
At the end of the lease, it's your vehicle. It's your equipment. So we would either work on transferring stuff over if it makes sense, or just selling the vehicle. We have to remove lights and sirens, obviously, if we're going to sell it. But outside of that, everything else we just sell as is. Sell as is. Same with public works. If it's a dump or plow, it's your stuff. We're just managing that whole process.
Okay. Yeah, talking to some of the council members who were on back in the 90s, we had one police cruiser that wasn't very functional in the early 90s. And now we've got how many? 10 vehicles, I believe, 10 or 11? 14. So we've come a long way since then, plus the public works vehicles that we have. Are you asking us to phase this in? Like, let's try it with the 2 vehicles that we need to get, or 4 vehicles? Or are you talking about replacing the whole fleet at this time?
It would be following the plans, the best route. Like, yeah. So if you look at that fleet plan, Joe, you'll see it. If you go back to the page.
which
Okay.
one?
One right.
Fleet plan.
That's the fleet replacement schedule, 2023
Gotcha, I'm
Those
sorry.
60. Okay. Those are what we would fall into. Now, the first couple years are probably going to be a little finagling with order banks are open, what's available, what do you guys need immediately? So there'll be some adjustments for the first couple of years to shake out, but following the plan to that gets you the best savings.
What is the next step on this? Does this require council authorization?
Will. We want to do this, have you answer any questions, I would say the next city council meeting, they'll put together some proposal for us to effect, right?
This is
Yeah.
This
What do
is-
you do with there, anything in writing or?
yeah. So there is a there's a master lease agreement that you guys have to Alex would have to review,
Right.
and then essentially you just vote on. He looks at it, you guys vote on it, and you guys get the thumbs up, hooray! You sign it, and we start working on the replacement plan. How do we start phasing this in for you?
We've already budgeted how much did we budget this year for police car replacement? There, is it 60,000, I think, so we budgeted 60 already.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there'll be any much adjustment initially on that
And
budget.
that's fine, right? I know because your fiscal year just started, so it would be again a phase in. So then we would start working into, because really where we are in the model year, it takes about 8 to 10 months to get a vehicle now, factory order. Used to be about 3 to 4. So how we look at it is model year 24, we're going to look at immediate needs. They have 3 immediate needs. We'll find those locally or regionally, replace those. But what we're also going to do is then we're going to start looking at ordering model year 24s because those will come in for your next fiscal year. By the time you get those and those upfit, it will be June, July of 2024. So it's a really two-pronged approach of working with building up your budget to become fixed, start with immediate needs, and then adjusting the plan to calendar year 24 or fiscal year 25 for you guys.
Three cars are down. We can move it around how we want.
Yep.
There.
Correct.
You have that line per car.
Right. And
Correct.
And we all know that the police departments are very competitive in terms of keeping and retaining talent. So I think this can only help to encourage folks that are here, hey, we got nice new equipment. And I think it just helps with that as well.
I heard car. Work hard. Put a lot of money in work hard. So, they have had work hard. Thank you. Next.
So we have already approved in the current fiscal year budget, 60,000 to replace police
Wonderful.
vehicles.
One vehicle, that includes all the equipment, and everything needed to go with it.
One
That's
vehicle.
60,000. Or I bought it outright. Right? You start now. Now they're bigger. Things in the nursery cost. Price. Things that have gone up. You know, it cost $5,000.
And Jeremy, in this slide, the next slide, it would be the fleet planning analysis. The second line, right underneath the yellow one, where it says 23. Are you saying that for us to lease 6 new vehicles for a 3-year lease?
The depending on how the plan worked out and how it was. So whatever that is, it'd be on different terms. So there'd be one vehicle would have a 2-year term, because you can see it in two. One, the cruisers, any cruisers that are on there are going to be on a 5-year term.
Okay.
So each vehicle falls into that category is going to have its own separate term.
But you're saying in 2023, to
Yes.
lease 6 vehicles,
Should be about $68,000. Yeah,
which is only 8,000 more than buying one.
correct. That comes back to the open-ended lease, right? You're just depreciating a little more. You're paying a little more than what the vehicle's going to sell for at term, and you get a bigger resale value gain on the back end.
Gotcha.
So it's really a cash flow tool.
So the other advantage too is that their network of being able to sell these cars, we have trouble in the past getting value for these used
Mhm.
cars. And they have a much larger network than we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, where we are located, it's a phenomenal place to sell vehicles. I mean, we're within 2 hours of a lot of cities: Indy, Lexington, Louisville, Columbus. Go a couple extra hours, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. So when we sell our vehicles, it goes out to hundreds of dealers. And they just bid on them. So, and we don't just take the first bid. You know, our remarketing team is graded on how fast can they sell, but how much above Black Book can they get. And they're also always trained to ask every time, how about an extra $100? Every time they have to ask that, you know, because it's all about gaining money on the back end, you know, making more money for either enterprise, if it's our vehicle, or for you on your vehicle.
I think for me, I see two obvious pluses right away. One, our employees having quality vehicles to use. And number two, our maintenance cost has got to go down when we shove those older vehicles out and bring new ones in.
Yep.
So,
There's another benefit that I can think of is, I know when I first started talking to Chief Hatfield about his role, you know, it's a lot of his time is spent on this, and it could be probably better spent on being the leader of a police department versus being a mechanic. So right.
So, Jared and Jay, you've looked through all this. Are you seeing, like, as we get up to speed, not the first couple of years, but when we are up to speed and this works out supposed to, how does it affect our budget? Like,
We've looked at it. I don't know, we plotted it out. That pretty much shows you right here. He shows that it's a $280,000 savings than what we would do if we were buying them out. Because we're able to get the return value, we'll tell them the equity of that and roll it back in. So those numbers, I think, are pretty good based on your experience and what we've looked at. So that's the ultimate, you know, that's the nice thing. More than, you know, $250,000 that we actually save by doing it.
okay,
And again, if it doesn't work out with the economic downturn or something, we can always stop it, you know, buy out leases, or just let them fire at their term, and then go back the old way. But we're going to do 1 or 2 cars a year. It's never going to get what we need for our department.
Well, that's the one fear that I have is, let's say we get 6 vehicles. And a year from now, we find out it's not the best deal for the city, or new council comes in and doesn't like whatever. If we were to terminate those leases a year or 2 down the road, we got to go out and pay cash for 6 vehicles.
Or we just keep on paying those vehicles because it's going to be much better. They're going to be newer cars for 6 years. We already got a bunch of cars that are 10 years old. I mean, even then, we're going to be in better shape than we are right now.
Yeah, it's
In terms
for me,
of our
it's a
cars.
question of flexibility down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah, you don't, even if, let's say, you know, again, to your point, 2 years in, you're just like, you know what, new council comes, puts the kibosh on getting new vehicles. We're still going to figure out, what do you want to do with it, right?
yeah,
If you
you
just
can
say-
buy them out then.
Yeah, or you could just run, you know, keep financing them down, right? It's your decision. We're not going to come and just say you must take them or anything like that, because ultimately we know at some point we could get your business again. So we're not going to burn the bridge or anything like that. We're just going to figure out what makes most sense for you at that point. Again, I've been doing this 13 years and have yet to see it happen in government, but commercial companies, fickle.
I just think with their buying power and their selling power, we're getting a big advantage right there that we can't get by doing it one at a time.
The other thing is we can source vehicles. I mean, if you're trying to find vehicles, you know, you're going to have to reach out to whole bunch of different dealers, and hopefully they will want to sell to government. I will tell you that the manufacturers do not, well, Ford in particular, they're really not wanting to sell to commercial companies or government. Their focus is going EV and retail only. After 110 years, they finally figured out supply and demand economics. So if you could sell a $90,000 pickup truck versus a $40,000 pickup truck, they're choosing the $90,000 pickup. So that's where they're putting their resources. They've gone to allocation for every single model. Ford and GM are going to allocation. What that means is that we're going to tell you how many vehicles you get. So right now, Ford's saying government's getting pretty much because they just don't make as much money profit on it. So that's where they're going. So we know the manufacturers to be able to get vehicles, source them. So like for one of my agencies, City of Norwood, I'd be sourcing vehicles out in Philadelphia because that's where the closest interceptor was. But Ford got it, shipped it in. So those are things that we're able to do. Find that vehicle wherever it is, nationwide. Versus keep trying to.
Well,
In a couple of months to equip it.
So you would take that off Rick's plate also? Is
Correct.
all this vehicle management, all of this?
All off your team's plate. So the fleet
Mhm.
administration, the day-to-day minutia of the fleet, we would take off your plate.
Mhm.
We'll have a account executive that will be working close with, right?
Correct. Yeah. So outside of myself, you're assigned a client strategy manager and account fleet coordinator. Those two individuals will work with you on day in and day out. So if there's any issues with maintenance program or fuel program or where are my vehicles, coordinating upfit. I mean, you have a whole team of people who are just working on your specific fleet, handling all the logistics for you. So you can just run your city and, provide excellent service to your folks.
and I'm presuming that administration would be the ones determining which vehicles. Are you asking us to give you permission for up to X amount of dollars? Or,
I think what we'll do is we'll prepare something for you, and I think we're pretty close to what we need right now in the first year based on this chart. You may have to do adjustment to get an extra $8,000, $10,000, but I think what we should do is just come back to you with something based on your agreement that you give
Yeah.
with us and make a recommendation to you all. I think our initial thoughts, and Jared and I have looked at this, we've had several meetings, we think it makes sense, and we think it modernizes our fleet in an efficient way and brings cost savings in the end. So we like it. A lot of cities are starting to do it now.
Kentucky League of Cities is, if you guys know anybody over there, Jerry's our contact, and they're a big advocate for ours. I think our Louisville group even managed to be they have. But on your end, so as I walk through council, ultimately, you guys would just approve to start a partnership with Enterprise, and then the budget is handled by you every year, however that works. So then we adjust the plan according. But council, from my experience in doing, it's just you guys give the thumbs up to start a partnership with Enterprise, and once you do that, that allows us to then start executing them.
so what is it for tonight? What is the next step?
Nothing.
Gentlemen's just giving us a presentation.
This is informational
And
only,
then we're
correct?
going to bring recommendation at the next meeting based on we'll have a document that authorizes us to with Enterprise Fleet to start this program.
Gotcha.
And this is just an informational grabbing opportunity for city council. And if you guys want to move forward next, and if Jay wants to move forward, administration wants to move forward next month, we'll present something
Okay.
and move forward or not.
All right, great.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Nope. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Pardon me. Have a good evening. Thanks. So next, we're going to go ahead and open up the podium to anybody in the audience who would like to address City Council administration on any items that are on the legislative items for tonight on the agenda. So if you'd like to speak to us, podium is yours. And since there's nobody in the crowd, we'll go ahead and close that. Next is ordinances. Tonight we have only 4. This should be pretty quick. And we're all first readings, so not too much to vote on. First one is the first reading of ordinance 2023 number 12. Ms. Klein, please.
An ordinance amending section 72.27 and 72.99 of chapter 72 parking regulations of the Dayton Code of Ordinances.
So we've had a little issue with parking citations that we're issuing and no one paying them. This is basically unpaid parking citations for the past 2 years. And we just did a report on parking enforcement, and we had issued $2,500 in tickets. And in the past, I guess since the beginning of this year, January through, and the 1680 was what is owed on that amount. So basically 40% of our parking tickets have not been paid. So people are just ignoring them, essentially. And so also our parking rate is relatively low compared to other cities, $25 for a parking ticket. Bellevue, it's 50, Covington's higher, Newport's higher. So we're recommending increasing ours to 40, which would be $10 less in Bellevue, but it's, if they're not paid within 7 days, it doubles, which is similar to what Bellevue does. And if they're not paid in 30 days, it triples. And then if you have 3 parking tickets, unpaid, then we have the right to tow or to put what do they call it?
Boot.
A boot on your car. We don't have a boot, but we would maybe purchase one at that.
People pay tickets at the city building?
They do. They can pay online with a credit card, or they can come in or they can mail it. But they have to, under state law, they have 7 days to pay that ticket. And then if they don't pay within 7 days, we send them a letter to the address that the vehicle's registered to, saying, hey, you haven't paid in 7 days, you need to pay this ticket. And if you don't pay it, it's going to double. And so essentially we're updating our ordinance to recommend that we increase the fines to 40, that we double that after 7 days and triple it after 30 days. And also some other mechanisms that would allow us to pursue those people who just ignore us and rack up all these bills and saying after 3 tickets, we have the right to impound or boot your car. So
This is money that's not hitting our budget. This money would go directly into the general fund, correct?
that's correct.
These people are not helping us pay for these vehicles,
Or our police officers.
our police officers, our firemen, everything that it takes to run the city. So that's a lot of money right there that people are disregarding and just saying, whatever.
And I think people probably have gotten away with it for years, and they think, the city's not going to do anything about it. So I think it's time, we've got a lot of these cars that are just not registered on the streets. We've been taking care of vacant properties. Now we're going to need to take care of these cars that are just sitting there and aren't registered. It's time that these people start doing what they're required to do. It's not fair to all of us that are doing the right thing and getting our registration and parking correctly to just have these other folks ignore it. So we've decided it's time that we need to start looking at this more closely, and we really want to step up enforcement.
I got a parking ticket at the library downtown Cincinnati. I paid the wrong meter. I went ahead and paid it on my phone within 20 minutes, and it's off the record. And, why is everybody not doing that? Why is it a stack like that?
Right.
Small price to pay for service of the library. So again, this is just a first reading. You guys have a copy of all these ordinances in your packet there. Any questions, or I guess we can probably save those for next month. Next on the agenda would be the first reading of ordinance 2023 number 13. Ms. Klein, please.
An ordinance amending sections 150.880, 150.82, 150.85, 150.89 of the city's residential rental license and safety inspection program.
So as you know, we passed a rental inspection ordinance last year, which went into effect this year. We've had some pretty good success with it. We had a report last committee meeting. One of the issues we have come up against, and we had dealt with this a little bit in the past, is that people say, well, I'm not renting it. I'm just letting my family members stay there. Well, our position is that's still a rental because you're letting a third person stay in a piece of property you own, or they're saying, he just pays utilities. That's the rent. So I'm not really getting rent. So we're saying, no, if you're allowing a third person to stay in property, we need to inspect that. I don't care if they're getting money or not. And now if you're living there and you have your family living with you, that's fine. It's not rental property because you're living in the property, but we have people living, outside the city and they're allowing someone to live there. And all we're asking is you just pay $40. You're not to pay an occupational license you're not making any money. You're not paying on your profits. So you're just paying the $40 so we can go in there and make sure that this person staying there is in a safe place. That's all it costs, $40 a year. So what we're doing is just changing the definitions to make it clear. We thought it was clear, but to make it clear that if you're renting for free to family members or friends, or not renting, or providing a space for free for family member's friend, or you're allowing them to stay there for paying utilities, other services, that's still a rental property that's subject to inspection. We still want to be able to go inside to make sure it's safe. And it's $40 a year for us to do that. And you're not making any money on it. You don't pay anything else. So that's the change.
Thank you, sir. The next first reading we have would be first reading ordinance 23, number 15. Ms. Klein, please.
1-4.
14, correct. Thank you.
An ordinance amending section 37.15 and section 99.99 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances to incorporate changes in state law regarding the collection of code enforcement liens.
So in the most recent General Assembly, the legislature passed a law that allows us now to put code enforcement liens on property bills. So that something that was done in the past, but probably was a little ahead of its time. So we are now allowed to do this. I wanted to make it clear in our ordinance. So if you're looking at our ordinance, that it references KRS 658834 and the fact that we can put that on property bills. So coming this fall, if you have an outstanding code enforcement lien, that can be placed on your property bill and paid when you pay your taxes. So that's what this ordinance does.
Thank you, sir.
I just have a question about that.
Yes.
So in the past, if they were separated, I think they were kind of doing that. But anyway, right?
We stopped a couple years ago.
Okay, so the liens, and you have your property taxes, you pay your property taxes, the liens get ignored is that what you're saying? Like year
So-
after year? So this is going to be a way to hold people more accountable and get
Yeah,
them to
so
pay?
the only way currently that a lien is we can obtain money from a lien is we have to go through the foreclosure process,
Right.
which is expensive for us and expensive for the homeowner. You have to hire, a lawyer. Now it's
And
just paid.
drastic.
It's paid when the taxes are due, and sometimes I'm sure many of these will be paid by their lender who has the escrow, and will pay that, and they'll say, well, why was that so much this year? Well, you had a lien on it. So I'm sure people who are going to be paying these things or getting these bills are going to say, well, why? Well, because you ignored basically all the notices we told you about a problem. And we told you were going to put a lien on your house and you didn't do anything. So guess what? It's on your tax bill now. So
Okay.
the state all allows us to do that now.
Thank you, sir. The last one. First reading ordinance 2023, number 15. Sorry, Ms. Klein, may you please?
An ordinance amending section 111.12 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances regarding the times when retail sales of alcoholic beverages are prohibited.
Thank you, ma'am. This came to me while I was getting my daily sandwich from Hansman's. It's turkey on white with running through the garden. They came up to me and said that someone was in there, they were trying to buy a 6-pack of beer or whatever at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, and that they weren't allowed to. And I thought it was actually a state law that was no longer a thing. I thought Party Source actually petitioned the state legislature to remove that blue law. And
Which they did, but it's up to local.
but it's up to local government, correct? And we still have it on the table for 11 a.m. They made the argument that people like to buy beer from them before they go over to the Bengals Stadium to tailgate on Sundays, Who Day? And it seems fair to me. I do have a question though, and I kind of want to change this now that I thought more about it, Jay.
Mhm.
In 11112, it's currently 11 a.m. We're proposing at 9 a.m., which would coincide with Bellevue, so we don't lose any sales to Bellevue.
Right.
Every other day of the week is 6 a.m. I say we just go to 6 a.m. Go every other day. They don't have to worry about which day it is. Maybe we steal some sales from Bellevue.
Assuming that they're open at 6 a.m.
Well, even if they aren't, they don't have to
Right.
hurry in. And Hansman's is open at 6 a.m. They have ghetto sandwiches. But so I would request that we make that change to 6 a.m. just so every day is the same.
Yeah, it's fine if that's.
If council's okay with that.
So just disregard point A and just make it the point B.
Yeah, just remove.
Well, you get to keep A because that requires us, there is a special Sunday retail drink license. So
Oh, yeah, there is.
we have to reference that, but you could just make it instead of 9, make it 6, just like it is in paragraph 2.
Oh,
Paragraph
okay.
B.
Gotcha.
But that way we're kind of like every day's the same. So the people who are working the cashiers don't have to remember what day it is.
Right.
And
Easy enough. So we just need for the record to indicate that the first reading now is that subsection A of 11112 will say 6 a.m. Instead of 9 a.m. Or which currently says 11 a.m., 6 a.m. instead of 11 a.m., which is the current ordinance states.
makes sense to me.
Okay.
As long as it makes sense to council.
Yep.
I see all heads nod. Dr. Johnny, I didn't look over your direction. You good with that?
What's that?
You good with 6 a.m. versus 11 a.m.?
Yeah, sure.
Who day? That is the last ordinance I have. Tonight on the docket, we do not have any orders, resolutions. So we're going to move right along to the department director's monthly reports. Typically, we go ladies first. Don't want to diss the men at all. We're going to go alphabetical, which means Cassie goes first. So Cassie, you're up.
You have a copy of my report. Have any questions? I also have the rental inspection numbers. You have a copy of that report also?
Yep.
It's going really well. We only had one.
So Cassie and I have gone through our top 10 list for the 3 different top 10 lists, and we have now are in the process of putting together our 4th top 10 list. The 3 that we've done, everything is either done or it's in progress. So we've got 3 more properties that we're starting foreclosures on. But the good thing, we're now getting to the point where most of the vacant properties we've attacked, and they've been either sold or repaired or raised. So that's really good. So now we're getting properties that have more issues that might be absentee landlords that aren't maintaining them, and so we're having that issue with. So we have one landlord in particular that we have problems with. There was a lawsuit with them. They counterclaimed, and we just had a settlement with that landlord, and basically he's agreed to sell his properties in town and take his enterprise someplace else. So that's good for us. Hopefully that will happen, and if it doesn't, then we'll have to resume our lawsuit. But we've agreed to hold it in abeyance until he has 3 months to sell this property. That's good. Sorry, I interrupt you.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have been by 219 4th. That's one that we worked on for
For 3 years.
3 years.
And
It's finally
Cue
they had
the
to tear
button.
up. It is really cute. It's
Actually, there are
really
2
cute.
houses. I call them bookends, the empty vacant bookends, and they're both being worked on. The Stamper
They're both
House
being, yeah.
and the Hammond House. And there's a house, a beautiful house across the street they bought for like $250,000. I'm sure they're really happy that.
Yeah.
That's,
The neighbors are thrilled that it's fine. So yeah, other than that, it's grass. We are putting, I don't know if you've looked, but Tristan's been putting the notices and citations online. We
Good.
kind of decided not to put the addresses. We're just giving like a running number of like grass, citation, things like that, if you're okay with that.
at the last meeting, you asked if we could put code
Right.
enforcement on there, but we didn't want to identify necessarily the individuals. So we're redacting that, but showing what the issues are.
Well, my concern was that if I've got somebody complaining to me that, you know, they reported this property and nothing's being done about it.
Sure.
Go online, there it is. So
Right.
that's why I requested that. I guess we'll see if we run into any problems with just this type of a totals report.
And
Which is more
anytime,
about how busy the department is rather than was this issue addressed?
and anytime they want to call me, I mean, an open book, they can ask me. If you have somebody that's complaining about a piece of property, to have them call me.
But this report, the individual case detail report, is a matter of public record, correct? So if somebody said to me that nothing's being done about it, I could share this with them or tell them to get it themselves.
Right.
Okay, cool. I'm good with
But a
that.
version of that is online now, so they can, right?
What's that?
A version of that report is online.
No, we're just breaking it down and putting like, we wrote like 20 grass citations.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
So we're doing it, by the violation.
okay, we're not, okay. I
But we're
thought-
not putting the names and addresses.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha, okay.
That's it.
We'll see how this works.
Any questions for Ms. Patterson?
Thank you.
Excellent work, man. Thank you. All right. According to my alphabet, David goes before Rick. So Chief, floor is yours, sir.
Have anything else to add except for you had my report for the month of July? Amongst getting Alex sworn in tonight, really didn't have anything else.
Good work bringing him aboard.
Got people waiting for Officer Wilkie. Besides, he wants to retire. We got people wanting to come.
Good.
Nice to, usually when you don't have space, they want to come. Like, where'd they go?
It's a good sign.
Yeah, it is a good sign. Sign of things.
Glad folks are paying attention. Anybody from council or administration have any questions for Chief Halfhill?
The stop signs around town, it's always an issue, stop signs. When you're walking, you expect everybody to stop completely, and when you're driving, hardly anybody stops. Completely.
Right.
But last year, the year before, we put on some of the stop signs around town, we put a thing that said, rolling stops, $164 fine. Can we either take two existing ones or get two new ones and put them at Sixth and Berry? Because you sit down at that corner or sit in Hometown Heroes, I mean, even the tank bus rolls through there. And with school starting and Berry Street opening and stuff, I mean, that's our primary intersection.
The problem is when we're not there, we're there, people stop on a dime,
Right.
we're not there. So it's kind of hard to get on it. Everywhere we sit, stop.
I think we can find it though, to get a sign or two, right?
Yeah, it's something I think we work through Public Works. The latest one we had it in the city.
Yeah, those
They
signs,
get too much.
they do catch your attention. It's,
And all we need is east and westbound. I don't think we need them on the Berry Street
I agree
side
with
so
that.
much.
that's easy enough, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else for the chief?
Oh, thanks for sending a good squad up last night to the kickoff for the football team, the Midnight Madness. The police presence up there was very effective, I thought. Thank you.
You know, one thing we didn't mention earlier on too, and I wish we would have, when Officer Lankical was here, was you guys put on a really great summer bash for our kids down at Gill Lynn Park this past month. We had some great volunteer hours. Lots of kids came down. They got to do this crazy inflatable, it wasn't a bouncy house, it was a bouncy boot camp. You couldn't get me in there if you paid me.
I
But
think they like the water balloon, hitting Officer Kugel with the water balloons. I think that was the highlight of the thing. But I think they brought in about $1,000 roughly. I think for the civic board
yeah,
Christmas time light up Dayton.
that's how important your team is to our city, not just in giving us parking tickets, but
That's right.
engaging our youth. And so I appreciate his and all your efforts.
Does a great job, and the more people we come on, the first thing they ask is what can they do to do community service or helping them. So maybe we'll have more events coming up. I know we have about 3 or 4 that we work on. So all
Well done to your team, sir.
right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, Mr. Lucas,
Well,
Rick's go last.
Well, he's coming up. Chief Atkins is on vacation this week. He was going to have one of his captains come, but he had training, I think, some sort of training, so he couldn't make the night. So that's why they're not here.
Mr. Lucas?
Well, we're busy as usual. Started on the walking trail today down on the river, cutting back both sides of it. And then just everything, we're gonna get on the curbs on 6th Avenue, on O'Fallon. We'll get on those. We're tied up on the alleys as far as getting all them cut back. And finally got our parks under control again. They were getting out of control of the grass. But we're busy. It's
A lot of
not
rain, a lot of
slowing-
rain, a lot of
not
sun.
Slowing down.
Yeah.
It's that time of year, man.
Yep. And plus it's hot too.
Yeah. It's a little bit hot out there, ain't it?
All right.
But no, and they'll be starting on this project. I'm sure Jay will talk about that. They started moving some things in, but they're waiting on SD1. now
Yeah,
to
we
come
have a little
through.
hiccup. I was going to talk about that. They want another, I guess, storm grate, and so it's got to be redesigned. It's just a little delay, but I think that should be done here soon and
Yeah.
get back to work.
Other than that,
So we will be. We have 3 workers under you now, and starting next week we'll have our 4th, which we budgeted in this year's budget.
yeah, August.
It'll start on
7th.
Monday, I guess.
Yeah, August 7th.
So we'll have a full contingent, which will be great. And I know you use the help.
Yeah,
Always. And the good thing is now you'll be able to have two-man teams and you can spread them
Right.
out in the
that
different
is
areas.
just all 3 of them. And we'll still work. Every time we're all 4 or 5 of us will be together. Like we got Dayton Pike weed eated down
Right.
below, but it's a matter of time before we can get up there and actually get it cut back. We got another street, Maple, probably needs to be cut back by now. And what's
Ashford Lane.
yeah, no, not Ashford Lane, Lincoln Road. Don't bring that name up. No, we're busy.
Yep.
And I do have some striping to do, but I'm gonna wait till fall because the paint doesn't dry as quick and my machine cause a lot more problems.
Okay.
And one lady's kind of yelling about parking spots and curb work.
Okay,
Get it?
sounds good.
Administration, council, any questions for Public Works?
Actually, it's probably Public Works and Code Enforcement both. Clarification. A property owner, a homeowner, is responsible all the way out to where the curb meets the street, correct?
Or
Our
weeds
ordinance
and
requires them to
grass.
maintain the sidewalks.
That's my issue, is the maintaining of the sidewalks, the curb. Some places have a little bit of grass between the sidewalk and the curb. And even in the curb, between where the curb and the road meets, you're seeing some stuff this high. It's that time of year, you know,
Right.
the weeds just get up like crazy. But especially with school starting in 2 weeks and we're trying to be more pedestrian friendly, can we do a public education reminder on that with our
Sure.
e-newsletter?
Yeah.
Asked you to remind them last year with door hanger. A lot. They all know.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
well,
everybody
nice.
knows you got to clean the weeds out in front of your house,
Yeah.
sidewalk and gutter.
Like I
It'd
said,
be
it's
very,
beginning of August, we've had just enough rain.
be very thoughtful in our remindings, just to make sure. If you sound angry, we get angry responses. If you sound kind, you might get kind responses. So it's been my. They put a little smiley face at the end of the message, you know, usually calms.
PSA, here you go, cut the weeds.
Oh, yeah, there is some out there that's 3 foot high.
Yeah.
I'll get that cut tomorrow. Sorry.
Okay. That's me.
That's it.
Everybody? Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Mr. Atkins' absence, that means we are done with the Department Director's monthly report. Moves us right along to the City Administrator's report. Mr. Fawcett.
We talked a little bit about the Berry Street connector. We're hoping that gets started here soon. The bump outs, Duke's contractor AMS, who's installing the poles, the bases for the light poles. They were about a week late, but they were out today. They got 7 boxes or 7 bases put in, and it looks like they got 6 more to go. So once those are done, then they can come back and do the concrete work. I know I talked to Ali Alejandro. I know was a little frustrated today. There were some trucks parked in front of her place, so they won't be there for a while. They were putting in those in the base, and so it prevented some people from parking there. So I'm going to try to talk to them and see whether they can, when they do work again, and when they're doing the concrete work, see if they can do it in the afternoon at her place, so it doesn't affect the morning traffic. So I'm going to talk to the supervisor tomorrow when they're out.
She's a morning business, you know.
Yeah.
After lunch, you don't get cappuccinos.
Right,
So
right.
That makes sense.
So we'll see if they can do it. I think they should be able to do that. So hopefully that's probably supposed to be done this month. This is August. So let's knock on wood, keeps going well. It looks like I think those bases will be done probably tomorrow or definitely by the end of this week. So once that's done, they'll bring the concrete in, and then they'll bring in the lights. So that's all I have.
It's actually a lot, sir. Any questions from council for City Administrator Fawcett? All right, thank you for your report, sir.
You're welcome.
Now we open up the audience to have any comments regarding anything they'd like to speak about. Podium's yours. Anyone? Now we're going to close that out. Do we have any new business this evening? Council, new business for administration.
I just want to echo what you said earlier, Mayor, with the being able to drive through town during the day now that I'm retired. It's amazing all the work that's going on in this town right now. I mean, the Ramey Building, the school project, the bump outs down on the river, the multiple facilities down there, dumpsters all over town. We always used to say dumpsters, not dozers. You know, don't push the thing down, fix it up. And that's what's happening around town. It's really cool to watch.
It's cool.
It's great. I just wanted to echo what you were saying. It's anybody who says we're going in the wrong direction ain't looking in the right spot.
Well, I echo your comment. I appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else? New business for this evening? Any old business out there?
How did the rope walk turn out?
Rope walk was great, man. We spoke with proprietor today who came in City Hall, and she said that her restaurant was busier than ever.
Good.
You know, you double down on things like Final Fridays and Rope Walk District, and you're getting people to come in, pay attention, and more importantly, pay their bills to our restaurants. So worked out great. Huge kudos to Mr. Barks on his work on that, and to all the volunteers from the Civic Club who busted their humps on making that happen. Any other questions? Anybody like to make a motion for adjournment?
I make that motion.
Member Neiman's made a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Member Volter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any nays? All right, guys, have a great evening. We'll see you next month.